Hey there everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I just want to say real quick, thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, just so you know, I do these pedal demos from time to time, and I also do these kind of dark ambient songs that I perform on here. So if that's your kind of thing, please hit the subscribe button below. It really helps the channel out. So today we're reviewing the new pedal by Strymon, which is the NightSky Reverb. And I'm basically going to go through all the controls on the pedal and just kind of show you what it does. I think that's the best way to kind of introduce you to the pedal. And then at the end, I'm going to give my thoughts on the pedal, give you the pros and cons, and maybe give you an idea if it's the right reverb pedal for you. I have put chapter markers in the description below, so if you want to jump ahead to a section and just check out like the sequencer or the morph or whatever, you can easily do that. So when this pedal launched, I felt like it got kind of a lukewarm reception. Strymon did this, they did this big internet launch thing, and I of course watched it because I'm a big pedal nerd. And it was kind of a weird launch, to be honest. So the guitar playing that they did and the way they demoed the pedal, it showed a bunch of the features, but I really felt like the guitar playing they did didn't fit what the pedal does, or it's not how people would use a pedal like that. It just seemed weird, and so it made me nervous about buying the pedal, to be honest. And it's not a cheap pedal. It's an expensive big box pedal from Strymon. It's got some cost to it, right? There's a lot of competition in the reverb market right now. You've got great stuff by all the big companies, Chase Bliss and Maris and Eventide and Old Blood Noise and Earthquaker. Like, the list goes on and on. There's great reverb pedals out there, right? So I think if you're going to introduce a new reverb pedal, it's got to be something kind of special and cool and, be pretty amazing for people to spend that money and replace something off their board. So if you've watched the channel, I'm a big Strymon fan, right? I have probably I think I have 6 Strymon pedals now. So obviously I like them very much. I did not get this pedal sent to me. This pedal I bought, so I'm going to be very honest about what I think about it. So the controls on this pedal are pretty deep, and we're just going to briefly cover them, but I feel like that's the best way to kind of show you what the pedal does and what it really sounds like in a very basic fashion, right? Signal chain, I'm going to use the King of Tone for a little bit of light overdrive. I'm going to go into a looper. I have a TC Electronic Ditto X2. I'm just going to sometimes run a couple loops through that. Then I'm going into the Strymon Iridium. I'm setting it on the Fender setting, and then finally I'm going into the NightSky. I keep the big sky at the end of my chain, so this seems like a replacement for that if it is going to replace it, so that's where I put it. The guitar is my Telecaster, and I'm not going to play my clean tone because do you really care about that at this point? Probably not.
So here's the initial settings I have for the pedal. I kept it pretty basic, and I'm going to go over the controls in the order that they kind of appear in the manual. It kind of bounces around, but it makes a lot of sense after you get a sense of how everything interacts, okay? So we're going to start with that tone section. So there's a low cut and a high cut knob, and then there's a button. So let's talk about that. Okay, the low cut, what that does is it just removes low end content. And then the high cut, it removes high frequencies. So this little section here is great for tone shaping. And then we have this button, this filter button. That filter button interacts with the high cut knob, okay? So what that means is if you have it set for the REGEN setting, it removes the high frequencies from the regenerating core. So basically it's just a normal high cut. When you have it set for low pass, though, it does this peaking high frequency roll off to the output. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I take it that means that it's more resonant. So I'm going to let you hear these things right now. So you're only hearing the reverb, you're not hearing the dry signal. That's why it sounds that way, okay? So as you can hear, that low cut knob really cuts out all the low frequencies. High cut knob. Okay, and then if we go to the low pass setting, you're going to get that kind of resonant sound to it. So you hear that kind of wah sound. Okay, now here's the deal. There is a secondary function to this part of the pedal. And a lot of the secondary functions in this pedal are kind of similar, right? So what we have to do is we hold down that button and we turn the reverb knob, and it is actually going to adjust the sharpness of the resonant frequency on this one. So listen to this. Okay, so listen to the sweep. And now we're going to dial it back. So you hear the sharpness totally when, it is diminished when you do that. Now I set it back to noon. I'm assuming that is the default setting for this. I could be wrong. I have absolutely no idea. Okay, now we're into the decay section. So this sets the reverb type and, how the reverb tail sounds, okay? So the length knob, we know what that does. That's the reverb length or decay. So shorter decay and super long decay. And I'm not totally sure what the longest decay time is on this pedal, but I'll put that on the screen here so you can see, because I don't remember what the hell it is off the top of my head. Okay, let's talk about the texture. So this reverb pedal has 3 different reverb engines or types, right? One of them is called granular. And I'm not really sure what granular means. I hear that on a lot of pedals, and I'm always kind of confused. It sounds to me like it takes your playing and kind of chews it up and puts in little grains, I guess. I don't know. But when you play this, what it really sounds like is a delayed signal that's kind of smeared. So that's the granular reverb. That's actually really cool sounding. And then if we go to the dense, so dense is a plate reverb. And then finally, we have a diffuse reverb. It's like a slow build wash. So, they claim it's good for kind of ambient type tones. Now, you may be asking yourself, where's the pre-delay knob? Because these long reverbs want some pre-delay sometimes. Well, in order to get to that setting, you have to do a kind of weird thing. You hold down the texture button and you turn the reverb knob. And when you do that, you can adjust the pre-delay on it. Now, the size pitch knob, that increases the size of the reverb core. So it makes the space sound larger or smaller. Let me give you an example of that. Here's a very tiny space. And here's a big, giant hall. Now, one thing really cool about this knob, here, check this out. So if we freeze a note, and this pedal has this cool freeze function here, so I'm just gonna quickly hit that. Okay, now watch when I turn this now. That's pretty cool, and I can see hooking a expression pedal up to this night sky and messing around with that, especially during like these big frozen moments. So that's pretty great. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the QUANTIZE knob, and that QUANTIZE knob messes around and selects the response and range of the size pitch knob. Okay. So here's the deal. Smooth, the size pitch varies smoothly and continuously. And when it's set to half step, it's quantized into half step intervals. And when it's set for scale, that means you can set a custom scale to, for it to quantize to, right? And you can do like minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, Dorian, major, there's 8 different scales you can set. So here's what this does basically. And I'm going to freeze a note actually so we can, hear this. Okay, so we've got a note frozen in here. So you already heard smooth, right? Well, here's half step. So it's basically, you can kind of feel it, like you'll turn it and then boom, it'll go up a half step. It's in little segments here. If you go to scale, I think the default is minor pentatonic. Now, the voice section is pretty complex and it does a lot. So it deals with adding pitch, harmonics, and distortion to the reverb. So the first thing is this shimmer section, okay? So here, first of all, the shimmer has intervals. So, you can set that from second all the way down to eighth and, up and down an octave, that kind of thing. Honestly, with shimmer, I don't find a lot of these intervals very helpful. I prefer to kind of go straight octave or fifth. So that's just, and usually octave. I don't know. Shimmer's not usually my thing, but let's play around with it. So here is a shimmery reverb for you. Obviously, I have that set very, very extreme. So there's 2 types of shimmers that you can have on here. The first one is input. So when it's set to input, the shimmer is applied to the input core and it doesn't regenerate. What does that mean? I'm not sure, except for it sounds to me more like you have an octave pedal in front of the night sky as opposed to the normal shimmer I hear. And the regen mode, this is where the shimmer effect is applied within the reverb core and it regenerates. So you get these ascending or descending pitches, right? And actually, let me try the sparse mode here. Maybe that'll allow us to hear it a little better. So here's the regen mode. So you can hear it kind of tickling up and up and up. And that actually sounds more to me like a normal shimmer reverb that I've heard on a lot of other reverb units. And then input setting, it's not as pronounced as far as it kind of, bouncing around on itself within the regen core. At least that's, or the reverb core, excuse me. So that's at least how I hear it. It's kind of confusing. So take what you will from that. That's my best way to explain it. So the Glimmer button, what the hell is Glimmer? Because I'd never heard of that before. So it dynamically enhances aspects of the input signal's harmonic spectrum. So that's what the manual says. I'm not totally sure what that means. It seems like when you have it set for high, it accentuates higher frequency harmonics, and when you have it set for low, it enhances lower frequency harmonics. So, and then obviously if there's no LED on there, it's completely turned down. So one last thing before we start playing around with this, if there's another secondary function, hold this down, turn the reverb knob, and you can turn up or down the Glimmer. I'm now going to crank it. Okay, so we have cranked Glimmer. Let's listen to what this sounds like. So here it is with no Glimmer. I'm doing a shimmery reverb with the octave with the interval set down an octave. So here's high. You definitely hear a difference there. Here's low. So, it's kind of a subtle thing to me. I do feel like if you're playing around with really long, crazy reverbs and playing sparsely, you can probably get some pretty cool effects out of that. I haven't totally got my hands around Glimmer yet, though, so I'm not sure I'm showing it in the best way. It's just one of those things that it's a taste thing, and every patch, if you're even using any shimmer, you might or might not add Glimmer, so that's what that does. Okay, and now we're on to the good one, the drive button. This is the feature that I was most excited about with this pedal, or at least one of them. It basically adds some drive to the reverb. If you have it set for pre, it adds drive before the reverb core, and if you have it set for post, it applies it afterwards, and you turn it off, no drive. And obviously there's a hidden function, hold down drive, and turn the reverb knob, and you're going to turn up or down the amount of drive in there. So let's listen to this. So this is pre. Actually, let me let you hear without pre. Here's post. So you can definitely hear a difference in there. And let me play something with maybe a little less reverb in it, and maybe you'll get a better sense what it does. I'm also going to crank the drive on here. Okay, let's listen to this with no drive. So, sorry, that was actually drive. Okay, no drive. Pre. Post. So now we're getting to the mod section, and this is where this pedal gets pretty crazy. So it has modulation, and you know what speed and depth does, right? And speed is how fast it modulates, and depth is how deep it goes, the range of the modulation, okay? Now, the target button is where it gets kind of interesting because it can target various things. So when it's set for Verb, it's going to modulate the delay lines within the reverb core. And that's like a typical modulated reverb you've all heard, If it's set for pitch, it's going to modulate the size, pitch, control position. So it's going to automatically turn that knob back and forth. And on filter, it's going to modulate the high cut tone control position. So very, very cool and very powerful. Okay, now we're into the shape section. So that adjusts the waveforms that you would, get when you modulate this pedal. So there's 6 options in all. It goes from, a sine wave to one of those square waves. It does random and then an envelope. So let's talk about the envelope really quickly. So the envelope shape, the modulation responds to your playing dynamics, and the input sensitivity is set by the depth knob. So the sensitivity increases as it's turned further from the noon position. So this is the lowest sensitivity. And when the depth knob goes here, the envelope starts at a higher value and goes to a lower value with an input signal. And with the depth knob set to the right, the envelope starts at lower values and goes to a higher value. Okay, so that's extremely confusing to me, at least. And yeah, it's just one of those things you kind of have to start playing with to get a sense of it. Frankly, I don't feel like I have a good sense of it yet, but you know, after a couple more weeks, I probably will. So let's listen to some of these modulations and hear what they do. So I have a loop. Nice long reverb going in there. So I have the modulation set for the reverb only, so that's with no modulation. Okay, so you can definitely hear it kicking in. That's pretty extreme, you know, but that's just so you can hear kind of the engine and what it's doing. Obviously, this is a more sensible setting here. You can hear some of these other shapes. Random's pretty cool. I like that. And then envelope. Again, that's going to respond to the playing, you know, the playing sensitivity and your dynamics. I'm not going to try to demo that too much here because it just seems a little abstract. You get the drift of what I'm saying, though. So now let's look at the pitch. So it's not messing with this knob here. And this can obviously go into very strange places. Now, one cool thing is this is constrained by the QUANTIZE knob here. Again, I don't find those to really be usable sounds, but you know, that's what the pedal can do. And then we get into the filter. So you can definitely do some cool stuff here. And if you go into, you know, low pass mode, it definitely can, you know, get into helicopter mode here. Again, I don't find that particularly useful for what I do, but having that option is really cool because you never know what's going to come up in the future, and you may just be trying to go for a really crazy sound, and you have all these things you can do under the hood, right? And that might not sound great by itself, but when you mix in the dry and kind of fold it back in, suddenly something that's unusable becomes actually pretty cool. Finally, we're here at the mix section. So there's two knobs. There's reverb, which sets the output level of the reverb signal. And there's also a dry knob, which sets the dry signal. Unity is at noon on this pedal, and it actually gives you a 3 dB boost if you crank the dry. I do want to mention, I like having Unity at noon. I have a lot of pedals where Unity is actually around, 1 o'clock, 1:30, somewhere in there. And I just like the simplicity of Unity being directly up at noon because, I like simple, easy things. All right, and finally, let's talk about the foot switches. So I don't really need to describe this one. This turns it on and off. The infinite button is very, very cool because it does a freeze on the audio. So now you may be noticing you're not hearing a freeze. Well, it's because it only freezes in the reverb tank. So if you have very little reverb or no reverb, you won't hear it, right? But that's the frozen bit of audio that I did in there. I do like you don't have to keep it held down to freeze. You just tap it and it grabs. And then, of course, as we discussed earlier, you can move this guy around and screw around with that. I still think this would be really cool to hook up an expression pedal and have it control this particular function when you freeze things. And then to get out of it, you just tap the infinite knob again. I'm sorry, the infinite switch. The other one is the favorite switch. So this lets you get to your presets. So you can hit that and say, well, I want to get to preset 5. Okay. Now, the cool thing is there are 2 sets of 8. So there's 2 banks of 8 presets, right? There's a green and an amber. Okay. So 16 presets, pretty easy to save. You just hold down the favorite switch until the blue light comes on, hit the one you want to save it to, and then hit the favorite switch again. And if you want to abort, hit infinite. So very, very easy to navigate around on this pedal and to save presets. So now we're on to morph mode. Now this is a very, very cool feature. So the morph function allows the NightSky to sweep between the current sound of the pedal and a set of alternate knob settings, right? So basically what you do is you set up a preset and then you go into morph edit mode. So you hold down the 2 and 7 button together. So now we're in morph edit mode. So we're going to take the reverb that was in and we're going to make it much crazier. So let's crank the shimmer. Why don't we move the interval to something nutty? Let's crank the high cut. And we'll crank the depth of the modulation. And we'll do this too, okay? So we've done some pretty extreme things here. Once we've done that, you just hit a button and you're out of that. Now you need to revert the knobs back to where they were. So we're going to do that. Have the shimmer off and we have that there. Okay. So here's our main setting, and now we're going to morph this. I'm actually going to freeze it so you can really hear what it does. So that's our frozen sound. Now we're going to morph it. Very cool. Now, I did a pretty extreme version of it there, and I think not the best one, obviously, but you can hear the possibilities, right? Where you can just have a moment in a song and you just hold down that button and you can just send this thing into a crazy space, you know, make the reverb huge, make the length long, do something with the modulation. There's just a lot of possibilities, creative possibilities with this particular mode. So very, very exciting. So finally, we're into the sequence mode, and this one I'm still trying to get my hands around, so please bear with me if this isn't the smoothest demo of this mode, but it's kind of weird, and it's weird to have it on a reverb pedal, and again, I'm still trying to get my hands around it. Okay, so let's see what this does. So you can program a sequence into the pedal, and it can be anywhere from I don't know why you do 1, but it would be 1 to 8 steps, right? So let's program a sequence and see what this thing does. Okay, so we hold down the infinite button to get into sequence mode, and then you can turn on and off the steps. So let's do a 4-step sequence. Okay, so we have that. Now, apparently it's helpful to freeze some audio into the pedal so you can start setting the pitches. Okay, so we have a little audio frozen into the pedal. Now we're going to change the pitches of the steps in the sequence. And I'm actually going to set our quantize to scale so it doesn't sound quite as absurd. And to do this, you hold down the button of that step in the sequence, and then you turn the size pitch to change the pitch of it. And that's it. So now we're ready to play this sequence, right? So now you can use this as a tap tempo for the sequence to set, how fast or slow it plays. You can also use the on button to just say, well, I'm on step 1 of the sequence. And I'll go 2, 3, then 4. Now there's also a glide mode for this. And obviously we do one of those alternate settings as well. So we hold the shape button and we turn reverb knob, and that will change that.
Okay everyone, so that was the NightSky. How do I feel about this pedal? I was really excited about it before launch. The launch came, I was not as excited. If the pedal was going to be a reverb pedal, I think some people were thinking it was going to be the next Big Sky, like a Big Sky version 2. I have to say I'm really glad they didn't do that, because the Big Sky is expensive and it already does what it does really, really well. Okay, so it'd be tough to kind of release another one of those. Also, I'd be mad because, I have a Big Sky, spent a lot of money on it. If they come out with a V2, now I'm going to feel like I'm missing out if I don't pick that up, even though it might not be that different from V1. And I feel like a lot of pedal companies are doing that lately, where they come out with another version, and that's cool, I understand it, and I know they're updating things and improving it, that's great. But with the more expensive pedals, when a V2 comes out, it's kind of a bummer because you just feel like you're missing out if you don't have the V2 and you only have the V1. Okay, so let's go over the pros of this pedal, okay? And some of this is kind of a comparison to the Big Sky, because I feel like it's actually, at least for me, it's competing with that, at least in my world, right? So the reverb on the NightSky, and I don't know how well this came across in the video, but it sounds absolutely amazing. And I didn't get that from the launch videos as much, but playing it, it blew me away, and I really, really did not expect that. The sound quality is very pleasing. We all have our own we all do our own cork sniffing, and we all have our own ears, and we all have our taste in these things, right? So I would say that the NightSky sounds darker and more analog than the Big Sky. It just sounds more human to me, I guess, a little bit. Like, I don't know, it just sounds more real and less produced in a way. I don't know if that's a great way to describe this. But it's the sound of the reverb, again, I was like, oh wow, this is different. It's different. And I think part of it is that drive feature in there, because it just darkens the tone and it does something to it. It's very pleasing to my ears. What else do I love? The controls are very intuitive on this pedal. So they're right there, you turn them and you know what they're doing. Aesthetically, I love it. It's very pleasing to look at, and I'm sorry, that is important to me. I like my pedals to look cool and kind of excite me, It's fun when you get a pedal with a cool graphic on it. Like, it's fun to play. I don't know why that is, but it matters. Everything looking the same and boring, I don't know, it's not the same, right? So aesthetically, I love it. It's built like a tank. Like, I feel like I could throw it, into a river and it would probably well, maybe not a river, but I could drop it and it would survive, right? They do include a power adapter with their pedals, Strymon does, and I love that because, sometimes you run out of ports on your power and you don't want to buy, another adapter or something. So it's nice they do that. In the world where you have to own 400 dongles for every computer, it's kind of nice that Strymon has figured out, we don't want you to do that with our pedal. I think it even came with a USB cable as well too, so that's nice, right? What else do I love? The MORPH feature is extremely, extremely cool. I feel like I don't have my hands around how to best use it yet because it's just one of those taste flavor things. So I think for specific moments though, if you set that up correctly, it's gonna sound really, really cool. I love the freeze feature on it as well. I have several pedals that will do a freeze, but the Strymon, the NightSky, it's very immediate and you feel like you just are able to grab immediately what you want. You don't have to hold down to keep it and let it swell in. It just grabs it. So it's just very fun to play. It's a great, great freeze. And then I'm going to go back once again to that drive sound. So the drive sound, man, it's incredible. It just you don't need to put that much in, and it just adds that dark analog quality I'm talking about. You know, I don't like things sounding overproduced. I think in our world today, especially with music, a lot of things sound way too clean, way too perfect, and way too super produced, and that for me is a turnoff, right? So for my aesthetic and for the kind of things I like to listen to, I want to have that kind of, I don't know, just human feel to it. You know, I want it to sound a little dirty, a little dark, a little imperfect, and it does that in a good way, right? So yeah, the drive sound really adds to that. Okay, let's talk about the cons of the pedal, right? So the alternate functions are not clearly indicated, and honestly, I mean, I know a lot of people who never read the friggin' manual, and they're not gonna even be aware that they exist. So like the pre-delay, the amount of drive, those are the two that really stand out to me. That's a little surprising that's not indicated on the pedal anywhere. Once you know about them and you know how to do it, it's super easy and it's very well done. But I would have thought they would have given some visual indication on the pedal of how to do that. So that's a little bit weird to me. You know, now that I know it, it's in my head, I'm gonna remember it hopefully, but you know, you have a lot of pedals on your pedal board. Sometimes you forget a function, and you know, we all hate to have to go back to an owner's manual and read it and, you know, figure out how to do something. So I feel like this pedal does require some deeper noodling than most of the Strymon pedals, which I don't necessarily mind myself, but it can be a turnoff to people. And I feel when you're getting your hands around the modulation section, especially, I feel like there's a lot of trial and error that's going to be involved in that. So I don't think that feature is something you just turn on and run with it, right? It's such a deep feature, it requires some work. That's not necessarily a con, but it may not be a good fit for some people, right? I also want to talk about that sequencer, because I feel like it's one of the, you know, very unique standout features of the pedal, and one of the weirdest. So I have not figured out what the hell to do with it yet. Now that may just be my problem and my fault. So I'm buying this pedal that has this sequencer feature, and after playing with it, I don't see how I can integrate it into my playing. It just doesn't seem like it fits my world. So again, it's not totally a con, but for me it's a con, right? Okay. And another thing that occurs to me about it though is I wonder, it brings up pedal placement for me. So if I have that sequencer running, I don't want to just have that going right into my amp or into my DAW or whatever. I probably want to, you know, have like some delay and reverb at least hitting that sequencer afterwards and mushing it up and making it into something else. So maybe this pedal would be good as a mid-chain reverb as opposed to an end-chain reverb. You know, that's something to consider. So, okay, so I guess here's my big conclusion, right, is who should buy this pedal? Like, who does it make sense for? Anyone who's looking for a big reverb, you should buy this pedal because it's a 10. It's literally a 10. It's officially knocked the Big Sky right off my board. And it's because of the quality of the reverb. Again, it's that sound. I hear it and my ears just went, I love this, so it's a 10. I love it, love it, love it. It kind of makes me feel guilty actually, which is weird. Like I'm anthropomorphizing my Big Sky pedal. I feel bad about sending him off or, you know, selling him or just putting him elsewhere and putting him aside for a while, which is very weird, and maybe I need help, but yeah, it's a 10. Get it. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't. The only people I can see that, you know, maybe don't need this pedal is if you just need a little spring reverb tank type thing and you never use big reverbs. If you use a big reverb, it's a no-brainer, 100%. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video answered your questions about the NightSky. and whether or not you should get it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the video and what you think of the pedal. I'd love to hear feedback and just hear what your thoughts are. So going forward, my next video, actually probably the next 2 or 3, it's probably going to be some more of the dark ambient songs I've been doing. I've really enjoyed doing those. I do have another exciting pedal coming in the next couple weeks, so maybe 2 or 3 weeks out I'll be doing another demo. So until then, please like, share, and subscribe, and have a great day. Thanks again for watching.